This is the Horse Radio Network. This is episode 30 of the Stable Scoop Show on the Horse Radio Network, Extreme Horsewomen. We would like to thank our sponsor, Atlantic Horse Carriers, for their support. For all of your horses hauling needs, visit Atlantic Horse Carriers at atlantichorsecarriers.com.
Welcome to the Stable Scoop, with weekly shows delivered right to you. With Helena and Glenn the Geek, live from the stable, it's every week. They bring you the news through hail or high water, while using their tails as their own fly swatters. So sit on down and laugh till you poop, cause it's time again for the Stable Scoop. Stable Scoop. The Stable Scoop. Stable Scoop.
This is Glenn the Geek.
And this is Helena B., and you're listening to the Stable Scoop Radio Show on the Horse Radio Network.
Hey, Helena.
Hi, Glenn. How are you today?
All right. It's been one of those weeks down here in Lexington. I don't know about you up there, but it's just been one of those busy, crazy weeks.
It's been a busy, crazy week here, too. You know, we've been tossed around a little bit with the weather in New England. It was 57 and 60 degrees the other day, and now it's 34 degrees, so we're all over the place.
You know, it's funny because we talk about our crazy weeks, but in this episode's called Extreme Horsewomen, and in this episode we're doing today, we don't even have crazy weeks compared to the women we're going to be talking to today. We came up with this idea for this episode, and we wanted to interview women that riding horses was the mild thing they did in life. And I think we found three interviews today, three people that you're just going to want to hear from, and we'll go over in a minute who they are and what their claims to fame are other than horses. And then we'll talk to them also a little bit about, obviously, their horse careers and things like that. But I just should be a fun episode because there's some really interesting women that do some interesting stuff out there.
Yeah, you could say that.
It was funny. I had emailed the lady we interviewed, remember, from Equestrian Singles?
Yes.
And I had interviewed her that we were looking for extreme horsewomen, and I got about 25 responses. Their little network really works. The word gets out, and you start getting emails back, and these are people I had never heard from before.
Did they, in their responses, did they tell you the types of extreme things?
Yeah. Yeah, we had dog mushers. Actually, I tried to get a hold of her. I'll have to get her name. She's one of the world leaders in dog mushing, and I think she's out mushing, which is why I couldn't get a hold of her. She's in a competition right now. And then we had rock climbers. We had Arctic explorers. Somebody who had climbed Mount Everest. It's just all these different people.
Wow. We need a whole week of episodes of Extreme Horsewomen.
I know. I was very impressed. So
I'd love to know where they get the time, in addition to their horses, where they get the time to do these other things.
And, that's one of the questions I want to ask these, the guests we have on today, because they all have pretty serious avocations, and, how do you get the time to do the horse thing?
Right.
So that's going to be interesting. I think that's one of the questions that we definitely want to ask. I wanted to remind everybody to sign up for our giveaway. We have a giveaway now on Stable Scoop, and we have those embroidered twill caps that have the really neat horse designs, 100% cotton, and they were donated by KBC Horse Supplies at kbchorse.supplies.com. And you can just go to our website at stablescoop.com. In the right-hand side, there's a little link there, a banner that you can click on, and it's free to register. And we're going to pick 3 winners this month to win the caps from KBC Horse Supplies, and we appreciate them donating that. Also, we wanted to mention, be sure to subscribe through iTunes or Zune. You can do that right on our website. And we also have a Facebook page now, or a Facebook group now for Stable Scoop. Just sign into your Facebook account, and up in the right-hand corner, search for Stable Scoop, and we pop up. And please follow us on our group there. We'll be making announcements about the shows and things. And then also on Twitter, for those Twitterers out there, Say that fast 3 times. For the Twitterers out there, we're at Horse Radio, twitter.com/Horse Radio. So we want to hear from you, too. Send us an email, drop us voicemail. We've been getting a lot more response now from people. And all you do is go to stablescoop.com, follow the contact link at the top, and get a hold of us. We appreciate hearing from you. And you know,
we like to know that people are listening, too.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's just Glenn and I.
Yeah, we're just sitting here blabbing every week. You know, it's funny because we have been starting to get emails with show ideas, and we encourage you to do that too. If you have something you want to hear about, you know, give us an idea. We're always looking for new ideas, and we have one coming up in a couple of weeks that I just talked to a lady from Italy yesterday. So I'm very excited about that one, and if you're in the jumper world, you're going to be excited about that as well. Mm-hmm. So that's cool. All right, Helena, today we're going to have some fun talking to 3 different horsewomen, extreme horsewomen. And it was funny, I mentioned that concept to somebody I was on the phone with today, and they said, aren't all horsewomen extreme? So maybe it wasn't a good title. I don't know.
That had to be a non-horse person.
Yeah. No, it was actually a horsewoman.
I mean, we're really not. We'll have to do a whole show on the psychology of riding, because we're not extreme. You can be if you want to be. You know this. But,
yeah.
I definitely think that Liz Halliday, one of our guests, is extreme, but I don't think it's the horsey part of her life that's extreme.
All right. First up, today we're going to have Kassandra DiMaggio. She is an endurance rider, which is a bit extreme in my opinion. She's an endurance rider in California, Northern California, up toward the mountains there, but she's also a California Highway Patrol officer. She's a CHP officer. Okay. So she deals with, obviously, life and death situations every day in her job, but then she's also an endurance rider, and she's also done some good work for charities and things like that out there. So we're looking forward to talking to her about how she balances being a policeman and being an endurance rider, and also all the charity work that she does. So it's going to be kind of fun to talk to her. And then we have Colonel Lorelei Wilson Coplen. She is a colonel in the Army. She actually lives in my old hometown in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. She teaches at the Army War College there in Carlisle, and I'm looking forward to talking to her. She was an Army helicopter pilot.
Oh,
and she
was or is?
She was. She's actually now, I think she's a instructor, and she's a higher level. If she's a colonel, she's up there. Okay. So, but apparently she actually was in 2 of the Gulf Wars. So she was command of an aviation company during Desert Storm in 1990, and she was in command of an 800-soldier aviation support battalion in 2005 and 2006. So she's a serious military woman, and, you know, colonel is next thing to general. That's about as high as it gets. So, you know, it's going to be fun to talk to her. And we found out after I booked this that my wife was in Pony Club with her. They were in the same Pony Club. Yeah.
Who wasn't your wife in Pony Club?
I know. So, you know, it's funny how life works out, but she moved around. She was only in this Pony Club for a short time, but Jennifer went, I was in Pony Club with her.
Well, how did you find out about Lorelei?
I actually talked to the Pony Club and said, you know, were there any people that you know about that were Pony Club graduates? And Lorelei, I think it's Lorelei. Okay. We'll have to ask her. Yeah, but you know, they said, well, Lorelei is, you know, she flew helicopters and has stories to tell, and she also spoke. She's the vice president of instruction for the Pony Club. So in addition to being a colonel in the military, she's vice president of instruction for the Pony Club nationally. So and her kids are in Pony Club up there in Carlisle.
Oh my God, she has kids too. These so far, I'm totally inspired by these 2 women.
Well, then we have Liz Halliday, and you know, a lot of people know Liz's name, but some of our listeners won't, who aren't involved in eventing. Liz is a serious eventer. She's competed all the way up to 3-star level. But she's also a Formula race car driver. She does the Le Mans stuff, those flat little cars, and she's serious into this. She is I think she is the winningest driver in Le Mans history, woman driver. that's ever raced in that league there. So I don't know a whole lot about race car driving, and I don't think you do
Me
either. So we're going to be good for this interview. She'll tell us about it, but that's a serious gig there. She's at professional level, and you've heard of the 24 Hours of Le Mans?
Yes, oh yeah.
Well, she's raced in that, and her ultimate goal is to win that race. And her other goal on the horsey side for eventing is to be in the Olympics. So she's a serious woman, too. How she has time to do all of that, I have no idea, and that'll be one of the questions we ask her. But we're thrilled to have her on from England today and to chat with her a little bit.
She's British, obviously.
No, she's American, actually, born in California.
Oh.
Yeah,
okay.
But she lives in
Silly
England
me.
now. And the Le Mans stuff is mostly done in Europe. That kind of race car driving. So
shows you how much I know about racing.
Yeah, I want to ask her too why she chose that particular thing and didn't go NASCAR stock car racing. Why was that choice made? And it'd be interesting with her. I want to see which one she was into first. Did she start racing first, or did she start, riding first? I don't know. But she's serious into both, and her website's interesting. It's at lizhalliday.com. Actually talks about both. So, it's both her worlds.
Right.
And it's kind of fun that way.
It will be interesting to see what it's like to move at speeds with something that can think for itself and something that cannot.
Exactly.
I think that's like the ultimate. Whenever horse people talk about the challenges of riding, especially cross country or especially at speeds, a lot of people say what makes us unique as horse people is that we are riding something that can think for itself. So I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to ask her that question. How is that different? We believe it's different, but how many of us actually drive?
Yeah, probably that car has a mind of its own sometimes.
Right. So I think she's going to have a fabulous. Everybody, take out your notepads because this woman is probably going to give us some quotes that we can take back
that's
for
correct.
our arguments with non-horse people.
All right, well, let's get started with our guests because we have so many of them today, and we're thrilled to have them on. Let's start with Kassandra. She's our California Highway Patrol officer and an endurance rider, and she actually competes in endurance. So let's get her on and find out a little bit about how she came to be both of those. Hi, Kassandra. We appreciate you being on the Stable Scoop Show with us today.
Thank you. I feel lucky to be here.
Well, good. You have a story. This entire episode, we've been talking about extreme horsewomen, and the first thing I want to do is just thank you for the service that you provide. You're a California Highway Patrol officer, and that has a certain amount of risk and danger to it, and we do appreciate you being there and serving your community and the state of California.
Thank you very much.
So, were you into the horse thing first as a kid? Is that where it started, or when did you get into the horse thing?
Well, it started with the Breyer horse. I was a little girl in Barbie.
That's how it starts for many of them.
Yes. Then I stayed with my aunt for a while in Oregon and got into the U.S. Pony Club.
Oh, so you were a pony clubber too?
I was.
All three women on this episode have been pony clubbers. Isn't that amazing?
Well, that's a fantastic program. It's like college for girls who love horses. So I learned a lot from that. And
now, what did you ride? Did you do eventing, or what did you do when you were in pony club?
I did hunter jumper.
Okay.
With a Morgan thoroughbred cross, and then went on to thoroughbreds as an adult when I got my first horse, and really enjoyed always going out on the trail and finding any place I could gallop and run. So after probably 10, 15 years of jumping and a little bit of training with dressage, I ended up getting into endurance riding, and I've never looked back since, and I absolutely love it.
So was it an accident that you got into endurance riding? What caused you to go there?
I was at boarding a horse stables in Carmel Valley, and they had a group of horses that one of their boarders did endurance with, and they were looking for well-balanced riders to take these horses to endurance rides, and that's kind of how I got into it, on other people's horses. But it was very impossible to be competitive when you didn't know what kind of shape the horses were in, or, you really have to know the horse to be able to be halfway competitive at endurance riding.
Well, that's like the ultimate partnership. You spend a lot of time with that horse.
Right. And, it's very difficult when you get to vet checks, if you don't know anything about that horse, to be able to tell if the horse is having an issue, what's normal for the horse, whether you need to slow down or if you can push on. So from there, I ended up getting my own endurance horses, and with my own conditioning was able to be much more competitive, and I absolutely love it.
So now you're a competitive endurance rider at this point?
I am.
And you doing local competitions, or are you at the national level, or what?
Well, I competed in mostly build-ups to compete in Tevis, which is the most popular, famous endurance ride in the United States.
Yeah, and California too, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Did pretty well there.
Oh, you actually did compete there?
I did.
Yeah. That's like hills after dales and up and down and around, isn't it?
It is. It's extremely tough terrain. Half the ride's on the side of a cliff. So you can't be afraid of heights. And a good portion of it's done at night. So a lot of the time you can't see your hand in front of you. And that's a wonderful ride. It's the first time I did it, I swore I would never ride it again. I finished within a half hour of the time restraints, and then I think I skipped a year, and then the next year I came in 10th. And
wow.
So I was liking the ride a lot better. And then the year after that, I came in 2nd.
Oh, wow.
And as my friend told me, I was the first loser, which is true.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people that ride in that competition, so being the first loser is a pretty good deal.
Yeah, I kicked myself. I was by 3 minutes, and it was, but it was a great ride, and I'm looking forward to having a horse that I can do that again. And at this point, I've moved on to FEI competition, which is international.
Yep.
With my goals being to compete in the World Equestrian Games, hopefully, if I can.
So you're hoping to come to my hometown in 2010?
I'm hoping.
Do you have a horse?
I have 2. I'm working up to that. So.
What do you have in your barn?
Cool. Well, I have 4 Arabians, 2 that are passported FEI at this point. One that I would like to get to that point, but he's not there yet. And then a 2-year-old and one in the womb. So
who is your prospect for 2010?
Diamond Chip, and if I can get the Gotcha's Dark Secret up to that level, that would be my backup horse.
Wow.
So I want to have 2, just in case something happens to the other. So.
Well, I'll tell you what, we hope to see you here, that's for sure. That would be exciting. Now, this show is about extreme horsewomen. At what point did you decide you wanted to be a policeman? I think being an endurance horseback rider, I've always been a thrill seeker. So it sounded like an exciting job to do, being outdoors. And I think when I was about 25, I decided I wanted to be a CHP officer. Okay, and then you went to the California Academy?
Academy, yes.
Yeah.
In Sacramento for 7 months. It was really tough, but I was in the Air Force, and that prepared me for the Academy.
Oh, so you were in Air Force before that?
Yes.
Oh, wow. So now you told me that you're describe the kind of CHP officer you are. Well,
I worked regular road patrol in Monterey and then Hollister, Gilroy, San Jose area for about 7 years. And then I transferred up to Northern California as a resident post officer. And I've been here for 6 years. And it's really fantastic because I bring my patrol car home, so I work out of my house. And the area that I patrol is the area that I live in.
Oh, okay.
And
now, CHP, just to clarify for people who may not be entirely sure, is that like the state police in other states?
Yes.
Okay.
It is.
Okay, so you're a state police officer, like it would be the Kentucky State Police, or
Correct.
Okay, they just call it the Highway Patrol there. And most people know the Highway Patrol, of course, from the old series Chips.
Yes, one and the same.
You're not on a motorcycle, though.
No, and I don't wear a tight uniform like they should.
No, you do that when you're endurance riding. So.
Yeah, there you go. I wear my tights and, yeah, exactly.
So we asked this of everybody we've talked to for this show. What do you consider the most dangerous? Do you consider riding the most dangerous? And I meant dangerous to your body here, or being a policeman?
It's tough to say because, with my job, where you're stopping people, you're stopping cars, you don't know who the driver is. You don't know if they've just committed a crime or, what's on their mind. I mean, they may think, they've got warrants, which you don't, but, so I could pull somebody over 1,000 times and nothing happened, but that one time, could be fatal.
Right.
But I don't think of it that way. So doing this job for 13 years, it doesn't, to me, it would seem more dangerous riding horses.
Right.
But in actuality, it's probably more dangerous what I do. I do wear a vest. I don't have to wear a bulletproof vest when I ride. So no one's, going to shoot me out there on the horse, but
you do wear a vest when you ride, just not a bulletproof one.
Actually I don't, but I do wear a helmet now, and I didn't used to wear a helmet, but now I do. So,
well, that's good.
It depends. I mean, both could kill you, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I guess I don't look at it that way. I love doing both, and I enjoy both. So.
Well, you do something else too that you told me about that I just think is absolutely great. Tell us a little bit about Patriots Day Ride and how that came about and what it is.
Well, the purpose of a resident post officer is not only enforcement, but you need to become a part of the community, and that means showing up to public events, helping out where you can, volunteering, and not just being an enforcement role in the community. And so I really dived in and became, a member of the community and was approached by the Rotary Club of Greenville. They asked if I could help them put on a big fundraiser, something that they could earn a lot of money, and the money goes back into the community, mostly for kid events and to help fund the library. And so I agreed because none of the Rotarians knew anything about horses.
Right.
They were aware of my love of horses and endurance riding. So I helped them start an endurance ride, which is called the Patriots Day Ride. And we started it the first year on 9/11 in honor of the troops. And a portion of the proceeds we would donate towards some type of veterans fund. And currently we donate money every year, part of the money that we raise, to the Veterans Guest House in Reno. So, and that could be young veterans, old veterans that need medical help at the hospital there. Their family members can stay with them.
Oh, wow.
And, and it goes by what they can afford. If they can't afford anything at all, they stay there for free.
So it's sort of like the Ronald McDonald House, only for veterans here.
Exactly. We've done it for 5 years now. And this year we're lucky enough to be able to host the American Endurance Riders Conference National Championships.
Oh, really?
ERC Championship Ride for the United States.
At your event?
At our event. So I'm really excited about that. And
well, congratulations.
Yeah, it's really a great honor. And
there's several amazing things here. The first amazing thing is that you got a bunch of Rotarians who know nothing about a horse to put on a horse event.
Yes, and they're great volunteers.
And that fortunately, endurance, it's easier to volunteer than, let's say, cross country on the cross country course and things like that. But I mean, that was the first thing, and then that you've been able to get it to the point where after 5 years it becomes a national championship ride. That's just amazing. Now, will you be able to ride in it, or are you too busy helping organize the event?
Well, at this point, I'm going to be helping organize the event. That's where I'm needed most. So that's
well, sure. The Rotarians, they need somebody that knows what they're doing there. So.
Yes, and I've got a great, the ride secretary who's also a Rotarian, Centella Tucker. She helps me. I mean, I couldn't do it without her, so she's the most involved besides myself.
Well, that's great, and congratulations, and actually they can find more information out about that at patriotsdayride.com. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm glad that we had you on, and again, I thank you for your service, both military and CHP, and good luck in getting to Kentucky. We hope to see you here. We'll be covering it, of course, so
fantastic.
So you have to promise to do an interview when you win at Kentucky, all right?
Promise, I will.
All right, good. Good. I'll tell you what, why don't we take a look at doing a Stable Scoop show closer to the national championship ride, all about endurance, and we'll have you back on before the ride.
That's great. I'll send you lots of pictures.
All right, good. Well, thank you, Kassandra. Hold on here, and I want to talk to you for 1 minute.
Well, that was awesome.
Yeah, she's a cool lady.
Very interesting. I don't know that I would want that job.
Me either. Me either.
All right. Well, I wanted to, before we move on to our next guest, I want to take a minute to talk about the sponsor for today's episode of Stable Scoop. This episode is sponsored by Atlantic Horse Carriers. Atlantic Horse Carriers specializes in the transportation of horses all over the United States. They do make many runs between Maine and Florida, but are happy to help you with your specific transportation needs. As a fully insured and licensed carrier, Victor and Maureen Breja offer outstanding horse care while in transit. With over 30 years bringing horses safely to their destinations, it's no wonder this professional couple is so highly regarded in the industry. With years of experience and a commitment to the best care possible, all types of horses are welcome on an Atlantic Horse Carriers trailer. So whether you own one horse or several, we definitely suggest you contact Atlantic Horse Carriers for your horse's next trip. You can visit them on the web at www.atlantichorsecarriers.com or give them a call at area code 207-293-4948.
Great. Well, we appreciate Atlantic Horse Carriers for being part of the show. And speaking of transportation, that leads us smoothly into our next guest, who is an Army helicopter pilot for many, many years, Colonel Lorelei Wilson Coplen. And we're thrilled to have her on. She's also an active in the Pony Club to this day. She was an A graduate in Pony Club, so she went through the whole thing. And actually, I think she graduated from the West Point Pony Club of New York.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
and U.S. Military Academy at West Point, which is no easy task.
Right, exactly. So this is a very interesting woman. I'm glad she took the time. It was interesting to get this appointment too, because we had to get permission from her higher ups or from the military. I don't know what PR branch or whatever that is. Mm-hmm. They actually have to give approval for this. So we're glad that she was able to get approval to come on and chat with us a little bit about flying helicopters and riding horses. Hi, Lorelei. We appreciate you being on the show with us today.
Oh, I'm very glad to be here.
Well, I'll tell you what, you've had quite a history as well. This episode is about extreme horsewomen, and I think probably what you've done in the past qualifies as extreme. But let's start way back. You were actually a horse person before you ever thought about going into the military, correct?
That is definitely true. I was fortunate enough, as I was growing up, my father was in the military, so I was fortunate enough to have the exposure of some of those old ancient cavalry officers hanging around the barns that I was at when I was growing up. So I was dealing with horses for a long time, long before women were considered going into the military. And but when I got the opportunity, it seemed like a natural fit.
Well, you actually did a stint in what was it your father that was in the Army, right?
My father was in the Army. My grandfather was in the Air Force, so I went Army Aviation.
Okay. Well, there you go. You made them both happy.
Yes, I did.
So while you were a kid, though, you did a stint actually in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and was your father at the Army War College at that point?
Well, we actually did not live in Carlisle, Pennsylvania,
okay,
but that's where we pony clubbed because that was our nearest pony club. We were actually, my father at the time was a professor of military science up at Bucknell University. So we drove the 2+ hours
oh my goodness.
every week to get down to Pony Club.
Wow.
And of course to do all of our pony clubbing with friends. And pony club for me as a Army brat was my stability, because I could go from club to club to club as we moved around, including overseas, quite frankly, and show up and say, hey, I'm a D2, hey, I'm a D3, hey, I'm a C1, whatever. And immediately people knew exactly where I belonged, what group I should be hanging out with, what horses I could ride, and so forth. And it was like immediate entree. And the Pony Club family was always very accepting.
Well, you know, and
that
had to be that. Yeah, I mean, and that's great, because I don't know any other way you would do that with the diverse things you find around the world and all the places that you lived.
I actually got a chance to pony club in Rabat, Morocco.
Oh wow, who would have thought?
Who would have thought? But yeah, there was a little club there, and we called it a pony club. Now, whether it was formally affiliated with anybody, who knows? But it was a bunch of embassy kids.
Well, now, did you have a specific discipline you were doing at that point through the pony club?
No, I was pretty much omnivorous. Obviously, the traditional relationship with fox hunting, because as I was said in the beginning, I was kind of on the cusp there of, you know, the old military traditions going out with horses and the new military coming in that didn't have a horse background per se. So there was a lot of fox hunts at the military bases that when I was growing up. So I did a lot of fox hunting, and then it was a natural slide to go into eventing. Dressage at the time was the thing you did so that you could get to the cross-country course.
Yeah, that's true.
and then only as I finally got to the point where I could do the fun stuff did I decide to embrace dressage, and that's really what I do mostly right now. And then my kids think show jumping is pretty keen.
And they're in the pony club now?
They are,
yeah.
And as we were discussing earlier, one of the interesting things is that they are now in a pony club that I was in when I was a kid.
Yes. So now you actually were an A graduate, right? You went the whole way.
I did. I went up to, and I got my A while I was a cadet at the military academy.
Well, that's the next thing. So was it because of your father that you decided to join the Army?
I guess the easy answer would be to say yes, although there was probably not too many people more surprised than my dad when I did join the Army. Mostly I think it's a generational thing. He did not expect me to be interested, and despite the fact that I was very horsey, I was also pretty much a girly girl growing up. So he was kind of surprised that that's where I went. But between he and my grandfather, I just believed that service to country was a great calling, and the idea of going to West Point, which was still so novel at the time, frankly, kind of appealed to my independent spirit, and so there I went. And then everybody kept telling me I couldn't do it, so that was enough that I, you can't jump that big fence, you know. Well, okay, watch me. Here I go. And so that was enough to convince me that I had to go.
Well, I do want to say, before we go too much further, that we appreciate your service and everything you've done for the country at this point. Right now, you started at West Point, but now you're a full colonel, right?
Yes, I am. I teach I'm on the faculty at the United States Army War College, which I just graduated from last year. I ended up staying here at the War College because I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Wow. So fighting another battle.
Yes, but I very aggressively went after it, and bilateral mastectomy later, and my awards now hang very straight on my uniform.
Well, we wish you the best with that as well. You were a helicopter pilot, correct?
Yeah, and pilots like to say that we are helicopter pilots.
Right. Okay. Yes. I guess that never goes away.
even if it's been a while since I've actually sat behind the controls. But I started in the UH-1 Huey, commanded a company in Desert Storm, with the irony then being that we had Hueys in our unit that were older than some of the mechanics that were working on them.
Now, what did that particular helicopter do? What was your job?
The UH-1 Huey is a lift helicopter. It moves supplies and it moves people. It does air assault to move soldiers into the battlefield and the like. when I came back from Desert Storm, I went to a graduate school and taught at West Point for a while. Then after I went to the Command and General Staff College at Fort Leavenworth, I picked up the Black Hawk and started flying the Black Hawk, and that's what I flew for the next few years until I went to the Pentagon for an assignment, and then back to Fort Campbell, where I commanded a battalion, and then went to Iraq, and then here to Carlisle.
So now, when you were a helicopter pilot as a female, were you allowed in combat situations at that point?
Yes.
Okay.
And that it's a somewhat of a myth to say that women are not allowed in combat, because certainly you can look at the news every night
Right.
and see how many women are in combat. When I began flying, I was only allowed to fly what are considered the utility or the lift helicopters. The joke we had was that we could get shot at, but we weren't allowed to shoot back. As I was halfway through my career so far, they opened up the Apache helicopter, which is an attack helicopter, to women pilots, and we have many women serving in those airframes now today.
Wow. So we're always trying to compare in this episode the horse world, and your horse world, and the other extreme thing that you do. And I think flying an Apache helicopter is probably pretty extreme.
Well, I always make the comparison that doing an air assault at night, flying into a hot LZ landing zone, not being able to really clearly see who's on your left and who's on your right, but trusting that they know what they're doing, is a lot like converging on the single panel in the hunt field. You come in really fast and you come in really hard, and you just kind of like out of your peripheral vision, keeping track of everybody else, and you just know where you're going to land, and you hope everybody's going to be paying attention to where they're supposed to be, and it's just like riding in the hunt field.
So I imagine you have some stories to tell when it comes to flying. Flying it over there and everywhere for that matter, because it's funny because we always talk about horses having a mind of their own, so that makes
helicopters have a mind of their own.
I was just going to say that.
Well, and you'd think that they're an inanimate object, so you put in the controls and therefore it's just going to happen. But what you have to remember is that they're buffeted by forces that are called wind, temperature, the thermodynamics, all
sand in the case of Iraq.
Definitely in the case of Iraq, but all of those other environmental factors impact that machine called the helicopter. So really, it's like riding an unpredictable mare. You're flying along, and you think you got everything nice and smooth, and suddenly some thermal comes up and buffets you, and if you weren't awake, you're going to get kicked around.
I bet. Not to mention getting shot at and all that other stuff. Yeah. Those little things. So, were you ever in a situation where you had a chopper go down with that you were piloting?
We've had situations. I've been in situations where the helicopter had to make an emergency landing, but certainly not anything. In every case, in my case. It was due to a mechanical failure of some nature, not due to any enemy action.
Right. Okay. Well, that's just as dangerous. I mean,
Well, yes, I think so. And they can be pretty exciting in and of themselves.
So, which was the bigger adrenaline rush, flying or going cross country or following the hounds?
Well, I would have to say that they're pretty much the same, and it's probably because I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie, that the fact that I'm not riding to the hounds now, nor am I flying, is probably why I drive too fast.
Now you have to watch your kids do it.
Well, my daughter's starting to drive now, and we're running down the road, and and she says that I'm very chill, to be learning with. And she doesn't understand that I've flown with many worse pilots than she is a driver. So I can be very chill. So I was reading a book as she's driving down the road, and I look over, and we're on the highway, and she's going 80 miles an hour. And I said, honey, you need to not lose your license before you get your license. And she just looked at me, and she goes, I'm my mother's daughter. I don't know what to say to that.
We should also mention that you're the Vice President of Instruction for the Pony Club. What exactly does that mean?
Well, I've been doing it for about a year, and I sometimes feel like I'm making it up as I go along. But essentially what it is I am responsible for the Instruction Council, which includes the committees that are the not activities committees, the horse management committee, the National Testing Program Committee. We have the National Youth Congress. We have horse masters. We have the visiting instructor program, the regional instructor committee. All of the committees that have something to do with teaching our kids in the United States Pony Club are the committees that I'm responsible for.
Well, that's great. And I know that you were a keynote speaker at the annual meeting last year.
I was.
And I think
that... was in Boston, actually, almost two annual meetings ago.
Yes, yep, in 2008. Well, I'll tell you what, we want to thank you again. Is retirement right around the corner here, or you hanging in for a while?
It depends on what the economy does.
As far as military?
No, as far as whether I can get out or not.
Oh, gotcha.
No, I certainly have, in another year, I will have served all of the time that I'm obligated for my schooling that I've just completed with the military, my colonel schooling. But I very much like what I do. It still is a noble calling, just as I thought when I first joined.
Well, we appreciate you being there. Your husband, I know, was a retired lieutenant colonel, right?
Yes, he was.
So we have two. You outrank him.
We do. So my
Does that come up around the house, or?
Well, my husband works hard as a consultant right now, but my daughters did look at me once several years ago and said, "Which one of us has to go in the Army?" Because they figured out very quickly that, at least in my side of the family, there's been somebody in every generation. So I assured them that they didn't have to. But then I look at my college savings for my girls, and I go, well, how many of you want to go to the academy?
That's right. We can get you in very easily. Well, all right, Lorelei. Well, we appreciate you joining us today, and we appreciate your service. And someday when we have a little time and can sit down, I'd love to hear some more stories. But I think you do qualify as an extreme horsewoman. You're on the right episode. And we thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye. Well, Helena, there are some cool people in the horse world.
Yeah.
Can't be any more thrilling than our next guest, which is Liz Halliday. She's certainly a woman who likes speed and danger, and she's taken horsepower to a whole new level. She's involved in two of the most dangerous sports there is. On the horses side, she is an eventer who has competed at 3-star level and hopes to go to the Olympics one day. And on the professional race car driver side, she has an amazing story. She's had a rapid and impressive ascent up the motor racing ladder. In just 2 full seasons in international racing, Liz became the most successful female driver ever in the history of American Le Mans series. And she's America's most prestigious sports car driver, female driver. And with many wins to her credit, she's arguably become, again, one of the most successful female drivers in racing history. So we're glad to have Liz on with us today.
Welcome, Liz. I'm so glad that you have the chance to, or we have the chance to have you on with us. First, let me say that Glenn and I are way out of our league speaking about racing, and I'm guessing that a fair amount of our listeners are too. So can you give us a little background on the kind of racing you do and how that, where you do it and what kinds of cars and all of that?
Yeah, sure. The type of racing I do is sports car racing. So primarily that encompasses 4 different classes of racing on the track at one time. So it's really exciting. There's loads of passing, great for the spectators. I've actually raced now in all 4 different classes at different points in my life. 2 of the classes are GT cars, like your Porsches and Ferraris and that sort of thing, and the other 2 classes are purpose-built race cars, so sort of open cockpit, much faster with a big wing on the back sort of thing. And I've raced in the American Le Mans series, which goes all over America, and I've also raced in the famous Le Mans 24-hour race in France, which is basically what most endurance racing is based off of.
And
How far do you go?
what makes endurance long? Is it?
Well, obviously the Le Mans 24 hours is 24 hours of racing.
So that duration is time, not necessarily mileage.
Actually, it depends on the race. Most of the races that are done that are long are sort of based on a time, but some of them are either like 10 hours or 1,000 kilometers, whichever you make first. 1,000 miles, whichever you get to first, that sort of thing. But yeah, we do sort of 10-hour races. We do a 12-hour race at Sebring, bunch of different 24-hour races, all around the world. So it's very challenging, and it's a different level for racing drivers, as far as fitness goes, and being able to sort of keep your mind strong when you're getting tired. So it is a challenge that I enjoy in racing.
Well, let's back up a little bit. Let's start at the beginning. Which came first for you, racing or horses?
Horses came first.
Oh, really?
Yeah, actually, yeah. And my parents don't ride. It was just sort of, something I always wanted to do. I always loved horses, and begged until Mom let me start taking lessons.
And you were in California then, right?
Yes, yeah. I grew up in California. I spent the first 21 years of my life there, really.
And so you did what kind of horse thing were you doing back then? Were you doing eventing back then as well?
I started out with Western, actually, just for a little while, and decided that wasn't going to be good enough because I couldn't go over a jump. So swiftly moved into English riding, and did a bit of hunter-jumper to start with when I was younger. And then I got involved in Pony Club, and that's sort of where my love for eventing started. And, as soon as I did cross-country once, I was sold. I was thinking, that's it. This is what I need to do. But really, I was competing at quite a low level in America before I moved to England.
All right, so you were in eventing at the lower levels when you were in California. Did you go to England then, or did you when you were 21? Did you end up going to England at that point?
I did, yeah. I moved over in January of 2000, and mainly my goal was to take a year away, just sort of to learn more about eventing at a high level. I went to be a working pupil for William Fox Pitt, who has been world number one many times, obviously, and on the Olympic team multiple times. And I really wanted to just work and learn more about what it takes to event at a high level, because it's quite difficult to really push yourself in eventing in California. And that year sort of merged itself into 9 years. And here we are now, really. So, but yeah,
so it
really.
was horses that brought you over to Europe?
Yeah, it was horses that did, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So what did you see, a race car drive by one day and you said, I got to do that too, or?
My dad was a racing driver.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he was an instructor for 20 years as well. He was an amazing driver, so my dad taught me to drive, and I actually shared a car with him originally. And he'd done a bit of racing in England, and sort of after I'd been here for a year, he sort of said, hey, well, if we could help you pick up the racing thing again, and it sort of escalated from there, really.
So it's in your blood.
Absolutely.
This was a very natural evolution for you. Okay.
Now, was he a sports car driver as well?
Yeah, well, he did a lot of historic cars, really. That was sort of his main thing. But his dream was always, the Le Mans 24 hours, and he used to go and watch Sebring every year, and it was sort of what he always loved was the endurance racing. So it was a very natural progression for me, because that's sort of where they always wanted me to be anyway, if that makes sense.
What's it like to race for 24 hours?
Very tiring.
Yeah, I can imagine. Oh, my gosh.
Obviously at Le Mans you've got 3 drivers. At the other 24-hour races you're normally allowed 4. But with 3 drivers, it's, you've got to be really, really fit mentally and physically. And, you go for about 2 to 3 hours at a time, and then you hopefully get a long break because the other drivers go for that long as well. But certainly it's a challenge because we race, rain or shine, day or night. None of that changes for sports car racers. I know it does in Indy cars and NASCAR, but for us, we do it no matter what. So that adds another sort of level to it. But it is fantastic. I mean, there's nothing better in the racing world for me.
And you're not doing, to clarify, sorry, Helena, I just wanted to clarify, you're not doing ovals, you're actually doing street car. Or this is street racing.
We do road circuits, yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, we turn both directions.
That's important when you have to rehome your sports car.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
So the Le Mans is a team effort then. You said you have 3 drivers.
Yes, yeah. I mean, the main part of sports car racing actually is that it is an endurance sport, and you do have multiple drivers. That's one of the main parts about it.
right, let's talk a little bit about eventing, and then I want to get into comparing the two. All right.
Okay.
So what do you have going on right now? I know that you just had a pretty good weekend.
I had a fabulous weekend.
Yeah, tell us about that.
I've just flown home from Portugal, where I've done an event called Barroca d'Alva that we try and go to each year. It's 2 weeks long. It's a CIC competition, international, the first weekend, and then CCI the second weekend. This year I brought one of my young horses. His name's Intrepid. And he was doing his first international ever. He did his first CCI and CIC 1-star. And I also rode a horse belonging to my trainer and New Zealand Olympian, Joe Meyer. And that was my first competition on that horse. So thankfully I had a good start and finished 5th and 11th out of 100 the first weekend. And in the CCI 1-star, I managed to finish 2nd and 4th out of 75 people this last weekend. So
now you have to tell us. Well, you have to tell us a little bit about that second place win. That was a nail biter, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, I'm still struggling with that one a bit. I would have won if I'd not had one time fault in the show jumping, which is just gutting for a rider.
Yeah, you were leading in dressage, then you had a clear cross country, right? And then you had one time fault that and of course now you were beaten out by somebody who's been around the block a few times.
Well, yeah, I mean, Clayton Fredericks and I were on the exact same score, basically from dressage all the way up to the show jumping phase. I only went ahead of him in the tie because I was closer to the optimum time on cross country. So, and actually I was in second place going to show jumping. The first place rider had a rail down, and both Clayton and I, both our horses jumped clear. So if I'd not had the one time fault, I would have won. So it was, Clayton was really lovely about it though, and I couldn't lose to someone better. I'm a big fan of Clayton. We get on very well. So, I think he deserved the win. Obviously, I made the mistake, but it's a shame, to have lost it that close. It's like it's in your grasp.
Well, what's funny is we're interviewing Clayton next week for the eventing show, so I'm going to be sure to bring this up that I talked to you about this.
Oh yeah, gosh, he'll tell you absolutely.
Now, do you see?
Really great about it.
I know this hurts a little, but you see the irony here that the race car driver had a time penalty and.
I know.
There is
it wasn't in dressage.
No, I know, you're right. But, my only excuse is that the horse was inexperienced, and I was trying to give him a nice round, and it was maybe a little bit too nice.
Well, that's actually leads us into a good question is who are you riding now? Who do you have in your stable right now in terms of horses?
Well, my horse Donovan, who's Intrepid, is one I'm really excited about for the future. I think he's going to be amazing. I'm hoping he'll one day be an Olympic horse. I think he's proven that he's got that in him this weekend. I've got a new horse who's just named Billy at the moment. He's just a little project of mine that I picked up, and he's doing his first British eventing event in a couple of weeks. And then I've got my 2 3-star horses, who's Oscar and Fox. Well, it's Red Letter Day and Arctic Night. And they will hopefully be doing stuff a bit later in the year. And I'm looking for a new horse, actually, as well.
So what do you ride? Do you ride warm bloods, thoroughbreds? A little bit of everything?
Most of mine are Irish, except for Donovan. He's a New Zealand thoroughbred, but he has a bit of distant warm blood in him, but he's primarily New Zealand. So most of mine are all, Irish sport horse, description. But, the Irish sport horse name is always a bit vague.
Yeah, right.
I have a question about that. I was recently told that some of the Irish breds tend to have a temper. How do you feel about that?
I wouldn't agree with that. I think the Irish horses are amazing, to be honest. Most of them I've found are really, really genuine and really lovely in their head. They're really relaxed and they've got a great attitude about everything. Every horse is different, to be honest. I've got one little Irish horse. My Red Letter Day horse is wiry and little and thoroughbredy and wild. And then I've got, Arctic Night, who's 17-2 almost, and looks more like a warm blood, and they're both Irish sport horses. So, it all just depends on the horse. But I've certainly had wonderful experiences with Irish horses for the most part.
Great.
So what do you have coming up? What's on this on the horse front? What's up for this year?
It's a bit more quiet now, really. I've got, like I say, I've got my first event with Billy coming up, which will be fun. That's just a lower level, but just to sort of start him off. I'm hoping he's going to be a fun project for the year. The other, Donovan's going to have a little break, as is Joe's horse that I rode. And I'm actually hoping that I might be able to ride that horse a bit more this year. I'm sort of going to work on that one.
That's
The
Bluey?
one that I was fourth on. Yeah. He's a blaze. He's fabulous, and I really enjoyed riding him. So I'm hoping to sort of work that one a bit.
Okay.
And my horse Red Letter Day Fox is going to be up and running by May. And Oscar, unfortunately, is going to be having most of the year off from a kick injury he received in the field, which is very disappointing. But, I'm sure he'll be up and running by the end of the season. So, and like I say, I am looking for a new horse, or maybe even two, so I'm hoping to have a bit more in my stable.
So is there any goal for WEG or for the Olympics?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, it's a big goal. Olympics is my sort of main broad goal at the moment. I was hoping that for Oscar. I still think that's a possibility because he's quite special. And, I actually am feeling like I might have a shot at that with Donovan because he's coming on and really growing up now and proving that he's got it in all three phases. So I'm hoping that that's going to be a hopeful thing for him. And maybe if I find something else, then hopefully I'll have another one in the string.
Do you think that your eventing career and your racing career are mutually exclusive? Can you do them both at the same time, or do you have to do one, let one rest while you focus on the other?
Oh, I mean, in the past I have done the two together. Sort of a couple of years ago I had a really crazy season. But, I have to say I do think that one will suffer from the other if I'm doing too much. I do think that you have to sort of pick a main focus for the year, and I've always told myself, I'll do it based on what has come through. If I've got an amazing couple of horses, then I'll really focus on that. Or if I've got an amazing drive that's come up, then I'll put my mind to that. Because I really do feel that much as I want to do them both, you can't do them both successfully to the level you would if you were focusing on one. Right. So, I think this year is going to be possibly more of a horse year. I think, I've had some really great results, obviously, at the start of the year, and I really want to focus on that and sort of become a bit more of a known entity to the American team. That's my hope, is for them to sort of start noticing who I am a bit, and have a look at me maybe for the future, hopefully.
So you actually you would still be riding. You haven't switched. You're not a British citizen or anything.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
No, I'm still American. Yeah.
So you'd be on the American team for the Olympics if.
Yeah,
at that point.
If I can get there.
Yeah, great. Well, we hope you do, obviously. Now, you had a couple amazing years as a driver, in a couple of years ago, and that was in the American Le Mans series, right?
Yes, yeah, it was, yeah. No,
What's it? How's there aren't a whole lot of women drivers in that profession. Throughout the profession, stock car and otherwise. Any of the I don't know if you call them disciplines there, but any of the that's a horse person for you. Yeah. So what's it like to be a woman race car driver? You're obviously in the mainstream when it comes to the horse side.
Yeah, I mean, I think you sort of have to earn your respect maybe a bit more than you would if you were just another one of the guys, But, certainly at a high level of motorsport, we are still a minority. I think there are a lot more women drivers than there used to be, but at the top level, there still seems to be not that many. I've found now, the more I got to know people, and if you do the job on the track, I find that everyone respects you as a driver, and I think that's the important thing. And, certainly when I've raced in the American Le Mans Series and been the only woman, or when I've raced at the Le Mans 24 Hours and been the only one, I've always sort of tried to just tell myself, I'm one of the drivers, I'm not a woman. And I think that's the important thing for the respect level, is you have to get in the car and do the job, and that's all that matters, and everyone will respect you as that, instead of looking at you as a woman.
Right.
Agreed.
That's my motto.
And it's getting you very far.
It's a good motto.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so now we'll ask some of the questions comparing the two. Which do you consider the most dangerous?
Horses.
Really?
Eventing, yeah, absolutely.
Why is that?
You don't have a roll cage, number one, and it's got a brain. So I think those are two of the big factors. I mean, I've touched wood. I've had more injuries on horses than I have in a race car, and I've had a few really big crashes. But you do have all that metal and carbon around you, and you've got the belts and all the gear, and I think it makes a big difference. But in eventing, it's just you and the horse. So if things go really wrong over a really big fence, then you don't have much out there to protect you.
We know what the variables are. We can guess what the variables are when you're riding horses. What are they when you're when you're racing cars? Your car is pretty predictable, like you said, it doesn't have a brain. But what are the variables that you have to deal with when you're racing cars?
Well, obviously, there's traffic, especially in sports car racing. That is a major variable because you have a huge difference of speed in the cars that are on track. So you've got to keep that in mind. You're being passed by the faster cars, you're passing the slower cars, and you're racing the cars in your class. So that's probably the biggest difference between my type of racing and other racing. Obviously there is the mechanical variables of the car, especially in long races. It's very hard on the car itself to make it for 24 hours. So you have to sort of keep that in mind in your head, and you have to look after it a bit. But those are sort of the main variables, and obviously just your own driving ability and being quick enough without making mistakes. So I think you yourself are a pretty big variable in a race car.
So I imagine being in shape you do have an advantage over some of the others because you're in good shape from being an eventer. That probably helps you a lot being a driver.
Yeah, it does help a lot, definitely. I mean, both of them are sort of all over physical sports. You need to use all of your body physically in both sports. So that side of it is really good. I do train separately for the racing as well. If I'm doing a long race, I have to sort of commit myself to the endurance factor a bit more. And I also have to, really focus on my upper body strength and my neck strength because the G-forces are very high in a fast car. And that's certainly for a woman, you have to face the reality that we aren't built the same. So we have to put a bit more time into neck strength and, just all those little variables you wouldn't think of normally.
And what do you do mentally to prepare? Is the sports psychology for riding versus racing different? Or do you sort of have to embrace similar sports strategies?
I think it's fairly similar in some ways. I do see somebody that helps me with that a lot, and he's been wonderful. And certainly when my season's up and running, I see him a bit more regularly, and I find it really helps me stay focused and sort of just keep my head in the right frame of mind. But I do, based on whatever competition I've coming up, I do focus more specifically on each sport because, there's enough differences and enough things in my own head that I worry about that are different, that I need to, sort of get myself into the frame of mind for each sport. I think that's the important thing is when I'm racing, I have to be racing and block the rest out. When I'm riding, I have to be riding.
Right.
Or it just becomes a bit too much of a mesh.
And when you find yourself with a particular challenge, do you think it's easier to overcome that challenge as a rider or as a driver?
Oh, gosh. I don't know, actually. I think it really depends. They're quite different, I suppose. But I think both sports, to be successful at a very high level is equally difficult. So I think that, you have to work hard to be the best at either one in an equal manner, if that makes sense. I know some people have said, surely it's easier to get to the top of racing or get to the top of riding, but I think both are difficult if you want to be the best.
Right. Well, it's like anything else, I guess. If you want to be the best, it's going to be hard no matter what you're doing.
Right,
Exactly.
and so you're setting your own obstacles.
I have a question. I have a question about going a little different direction. Sponsorship. You need a lot of money to race a car, and you need a lot of money to be at the high level of eventing. Has one been more difficult to attain than the other?
Well, that's
you have to fight two battles. I mean, that's a tough one.
I mean, certainly the motorsport is a higher amount of money that you need, to be honest, and that I think that's actually more difficult to find sponsors in. I've been lucky to have had a couple really good sponsors in the past, but it is very difficult, and people think it's easy as a woman if you're a racing driver to get sponsorship, but it isn't really. It's just as hard. It's just as big amount of money, and especially in today's economic times, it's very difficult. In the horse world, there's a lot of product sponsor, and I think that's really helpful, makes a really big difference. And I'm very lucky to have a new sponsor in Equine Superstore, and I've got Nupa Feed who's helped me out, who's just come over to the U.S., I believe. Yep, and I'm very lucky to have that help and that support, and I'm finding that easier to find, little sponsors like that who can help you along the way instead of looking for the really big money sponsor.
Right.
Yeah, and I imagine that with the car companies having the Fords of the world, and the Fords and the Chevys and all of them having financial trouble right now, that's got to hurt racing a little bit.
It has. I mean, the racing community has really changed a lot, and I know the numbers are down in a lot of the races, and certainly, races like the Le Mans 24 Hours, a lot of the teams have pulled out. They just can't afford it, and it's very hard to find sponsorship because companies are, reining everything in a bit. They don't want to, splurge their money on motorsport and, fun things like that. It's a difficult time, I think, for anybody in racing and for the teams.
Wow.
I have another strategy question because I'm fascinated by the racing and riding thing. Do you think that there's something about your career as a race car driver that gives you either a benefit or a disadvantage in your eventing career? Obviously, it makes you unique, but does that uniqueness translate into something in your eventing career?
I mean, certainly it helps profile-wise. That side of it has been helpful. I do think that, the intensity of racing and how fast your reaction speeds have to be and sort of what you have to put yourself mentally and physically through has helped me in eventing. I do believe that. I think also actually the eventing has helped my racing career in that I'm pretty good at setting up a car and feeling what the car's doing, and I think that's from years of being in a saddle, to be honest.
Yeah, right.
But certainly, I think the two are such intense sports that, like I say, you have to be so fast in your reaction speeds and make quick decisions, and I think that side of the racing has probably helped my eventing and made me maybe a better rider because I'm used to things happening so fast that I can slow it down a bit for riding, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but things don't happen quite as fast for that, so that I'm hoping that maybe it's helped me to be mentally a bit quicker.
And then the horse says, no thanks, and that changes
exactly.
anyway.
And then that's another factor, and it throws it all in the bin. It doesn't mean anything.
It's good to know that folks at the upper levels have their servings of humble pie as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Those broken bones she was talking about? That's part of the humble pie right there.
This is the only reason I do these interviews. It's just so I can hear upper level riders say that they've had
that they're humble too. It makes you feel better about yourself.
Absolutely.
Oh, don't worry, we've all been there.
Liz, it's been great having you on. It's so nice to talk to you. And I wanted to mention to everybody that they can find you and all about what you're up to at lizhalliday.com.
Yep,
and is there anything else you need to plug or want to mention here?
Oh, gosh. No, just a thanks to my sponsors, Nupa Feed, Equine Superstore, Quantum Saddles. It's great to have people helping us all out. It makes all the difference for everybody. And Performance Drink as well. They've been great. So mainly just thanks for having me on. It's been really fun, and hopefully we can do this again.
Well, can we have you on again after you have been accepted to the Olympic team?
Oh, absolutely. Hopefully that'll be soon.
Well, we'll be rooting for you.
All right, we'll have you on before that too, okay?
Great, okay. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks a lot, Liz.
Take care. Bye.
Okay, I consider me officially inspired. A little intimidated because there's no way I could drive a car that fast around a track.
I've seen you drive, Helena. You get close to it. You live in Boston. You almost have to drive 200 miles an hour.
It's true. I do have a thing for speed, I have to say. But my goodness, and what an accomplished woman. That was a really great interview.
Yeah, and it looks like she's actually going places and doing very well with the horse side. So, that's going to be fun to watch her too. She probably is bound for the Olympics and maybe even in 2012.
Yeah, let's keep our eyes open for her. And we could say, I heard about Liz.
That's right. We talked to her. All right. Well, speaking of shows, we have two other shows on the network. One is the Eventing Radio Show, and this past episode we did what was called the Grooms Quiz, our first Eventing Grooms Quiz. We had three of the grooms from three of the most well-known eventers in the United States. Karen O'Connor, Heidi White, and Philip Dutton's grooms were on, and we did a quiz show with them. Sort of like a Jeopardy, and we asked all Rolex-related questions, and it was a blast. They had fun. We had fun. It was just a riot, and I encourage everybody to listen. It was just a very fun episode. And then also released today, same day as this show is going out, we have a special episode. We got to spend almost an hour speaking with a legend of eventing and the FEI's rider of the 20th century, Mark Todd. Okay. Yeah, if you've heard anything about eventing, you know the name Mark Todd. And, to be named FEI's Rider of the 20th Century is amazing.
Yeah, that's not just the year.
Well, we got him to get out a glass of wine, sit down, and he actually spoke with us for almost 50 minutes.
Yes, because he had a glass of wine.
Yes, exactly right. So we got him to settle down. Apparently that's almost impossible to do with Mark. And he retired in the year 2000 from eventing and now has come back. So he's looking forward to coming to Rolex and also to 2010, the WEG Games. So we were excited to talk to him. And it was supposed to be part of this week's episode, but he went so long. We thought it would be a sin take any part of it out. So we just put out a special episode with Mark in it, and I think you'll want to listen to that. And also the 2010 radio show. We have the latest news from the 2010 games this week. And, we also speak with my co-host Chris for the eventing radio show. She joins us on the 2010 show. She has been to all the WEG games that there have been. And she tells us some of her memories from all the different WEGs through the years. So you get to get a little bit of the history of the World Equestrian Games through the years on that show this week. And what do we have next week on our show, Helena?
Everybody should be sure to listen next week because we're going to bring you a look at the newest products from tack shops all over the country for the spring of 2009. We've got some cool stuff coming up there.
All right, well, you'll be in heaven for that episode, just talking about tack and clothing and all the new stuff out.
Yeah, it's an excuse to spend money I don't have on things I don't need.
Right, exactly. I think that's what happened to you at Christmas, actually, when we did those episodes. All right, you can, again, find our show notes for today's episode with all the links to all the fabulous people we spoke with, and we wanted to thank all our guests for taking time out of their day to join us. You can find all of that at stablescoop.com. And we also wanted to thank our sponsor this week for being part of the show, the Atlantic Horse Carriers. You can find them at atlantichorsecarriers.com. All right, Helena, we'll see you again next week as we talk tack and clothing.
And we will be here with the scoop. You can be sure of that.
Get your checkbook out.